Welcome to Filthy Casuals Review, a game where two bumbling magic morons try to match wits with the best brains Limited has to offer, and Marshall Sutcliffe. Just kidding, love you, Marshall. Here's how it works. When a new Magic set comes out, pro player Luis Scott-Vargas and self-proclaimed food and beverage director Marshall Sutcliffe grade all of the commons and uncommons from the set on their excellent podcast, Limited Resources. Kenny and Seth have each done a blind review of the cards on their own. The goal? Get as close as possible to the grades the pros gave them. I'll let LSV explain the grading system.
A's.
These are your bombs, your game winners, just the best cards in the set. They tend to be really efficient, good in many situations, or just capable of ending a game by themselves.
B's.
B's are cards that actively pull you towards their colors. These are headliners for a set, go-to cards, and reasons to be in a particular color, clan, or guild.
C's.
C's are playable. Most cards fall into this category. They're fairly interchangeable, and you're going to end up with a bunch in your deck. C's don't mean bad. C's are just kind of your average card.
D's.
D's are sometimes playable, but you'd prefer not to run them. These are the cards that, when you've got these in your deck, you kind of wince a little. You're actively unhappy that you have to play them.
F's.
And then F's are basically unplayable.
Seth and Kenny will get points based on how far off they are from the professional grades. It's a lot like golf. There's a lot of cursing and the low score wins. To spice it up, the loser of our little game will have to buy a booster box of the new set for the winner. Stick around till the end of the show to see who won. But for now, let's talk about some of the truly awful decisions Kenny and Seth made, and maybe even some of the valuable lessons learned, as Filthy Casuals review...
Phyrexia. All will be one. All will be one.
Hello! Welcome back, Filthy Casuals review. I'm here with Seth in the flesh.
Hello!
I'm seeing his flesh. I'm touching his flesh.
Ooh, feel the flesh.
And we're here to eventually review Phyrexia, All Will Be One.
That's right.
But first, we've got a few little tasks to take care of. First of which is looking back at the Brothers War. Seth's favorite set over the last 5 years, I would say. Is that right?
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
You may have noticed, if you are a fan, a follower of the show, that Seth has not posted any MTG ASMR podcasts because you did not enjoy the previous set.
Typically what I like to do is, if I can at least go 3-3,
it's worth.
I'll record some, but if I'm like 1-3 or 2-3, either I'm too pissed off to really be coherent enough to have a podcast,
right,
or it's just like it takes 12 minutes. I'm like, that's not worth it. Well, there's a reason I had 0 podcasts, because I couldn't win from this set for anything.
Yeah, it was kind of a wild ride. But as always, we want to look back and see how we did on our last go-round.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with my defeat card. So the card that I was incorrect about.
Sounds good.
My defeat card is Mishra's Research Desk. This is a 1-mana artifact. You pay 1, tap, sacrifice the desk, exile the top 2 cards of your library, choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card, and it has Unearth for 1 and a red. So this is just kind of a cheap value artifact card.
Sure, yeah.
I did not think a whole lot of it, but in fact, it is an artifact, which went a long way.
Yeah,
it was cheap. Cheap, kind of trippy artifacts were very good in this set. And the fact that it fit anywhere in the curve, and you could kind of split up the costs wherever you wanted.
Sure.
Eventually got you some value, made it a perfectly good card in the format. So
yeah, that's fair.
It wound up being pretty good.
Sure. Very good.
Your defeat card,
oh boy,
is a similar thing where it's like a card draw thing, a searching thing, is Forge the Anchor. So this was 2 and a blue for a spell that, look at your top 4, something like that, cards of your library, you get an artifact card, you put it in your hand.
Right.
And that sounds good in the artifact set. It wound up you just didn't have time to be farting around, spending 3 mana to maybe draw a card.
Sure.
So that's where that ended up.
Okay. Sounds good.
Your victory card, on the other hand, and maybe this is something we'll talk about today as well, is a 1-drop. A white 1-drop. Survivor of Corliss.
Yes. This
is the first drop, or first strike guy, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so this is 1 white mana for a human soldier, 1/1, first strike, and then you can pay 1 and a white to exile it from your graveyard and scry 2. You wound up being pretty high on this, and LR was kind of neutral, and I remember you being kind of surprised, like they seem to be higher up on these 1-drops that do a lot of different things, and they weren't too high on this. Well, at the end of the day, LSV wound up loving this card. He said it beats many of the 1 and 2 drops in combat. It enables Warlord's Elite, the one where you tap creatures to make it cheaper to play. It's good with equipment. It's a soldier, which was a tribe that mattered in the set. So it just did a lot of different things.
It did,
and wound up being good.
Yeah.
Mine, I can imagine the card art, but I can't remember the name of the card. It was the blue-black uncommon. It was the signpost uncommon for blue and black. Evangel of something?
Oh, geez.
Evangel of Synthesis? Does that sound right?
Yes. Yes, it does.
Yes. Blue and a black for a 2/3. So I remember saying it's already above the curve on stats.
Oh, of course.
When it ETBs, you loot, and then as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, it gets +1/+0 and has Menace. And I remember thinking, this just does so many things.
It's a great card.
So it wound up very high in the uncommon win rate, and Marshall was very surprised about this. I was not surprised at all.
No.
This made total sense. And then lastly, I employed you to get some help with this one. I was looking for a wild card. A card that wound up surprising all of us. And we went with our Gothian Sprite. 1 and a green for a 2/2, just a grizzly bear.
Yep.
But then you could pay 7 mana to start putting counters on it and make it more and more powerful over time. Getting on board with a 2 mana 2/2 was fine.
Sure.
And then I saw plenty of games where it was reasonable to start putting counters on this thing.
Yeah, we thought it was slow just initially with, costing 7, but it ended up having an effect. So.
I mean, it's kind of strange. I mean, it makes sense that it's a wild card because it was an aggressive, assertive format.
Yes.
So the fact that this card, which you start putting counters on very late in the game, wound up being decent is kind of strange.
Yeah.
But it definitely was decent. Okay, so that's Brothers War. We'll put that behind us.
All right. We won't put that very far in the past.
And this, we have a traditional segment as well.
Yeah.
Seth's set review.
Yeah.
So looking forward to Phyrexia, All Will Be One. Just real briefly, what are your impressions of the set? What do you think of it so far?
I'm going to be, if I remember right, I gave kind of a glowing review to Brothers War before promptly hating it, so I'm going to kind of temper my expectations here with this one. But I am cautiously optimistic with this one. I think the name of the game here is, and this is kind of a theme, we kind of talked about this a little bit before the podcast, is quickness. Just everybody wants to be quick, fast, and there's a lot of enablements and opportunities here with and we'll talk about these things like toxic and poison counters and everything else. So we have multiple ways of winning, arguably more efficient ways of winning. With toxic, you only need 10 poison counters to win the game.
Right.
So, I think another thing too, because there are so many different types of counters, we have toxic, we have poison counters, we have oil counters, we've got all sorts of stuff. So I think synergy is really going to be important in this set as well. So not only do you need to be fast, but you need to have a very coherent deck. So that's going to be tricky. I'm cautiously optimistic that there's a nucleus of cards which can support multiple archetypes, but we'll see. Yeah. We'll see.
I agree. It looks fast. All these, the word that keeps getting used in the podcast I listen to is assertive. So the last few sets, they aren't necessarily they do lean aggressive, but it's more assertive. It's not you can't win by doing a more controlling, synergistic thing, but you have to be on board quickly. And this set, like you say, with toxic, with poison counters, and these cheap, aggressive poison strategies, you have to have things on the board to throw in front of your opponent's poison creatures. So I'm nervous about the set, to be honest.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Just because it seems like the cheap, aggressive strategies are extremely viable, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself. But I'm not great with them, and I don't love playing them because it leaves so much out of your hands. Like, you basically, like, look at your opening hand, and you're like, well, do I win or do I lose? And so I'm worried that might be the case with this set, but I don't know.
You know, another thing, too, is sometimes it's kind of a coin flip who goes first, too. And that's...
As Nummy would say, yeah.
Yeah, Nummy has definitely said that time and time again. And I'm seeing that as well. Like, if you're not going first, then
you're last.
kind of... Yeah, truly. So, yeah, you're really behind the 8 ball if you're not going first on a lot of these sets here, which, yeah, I'm not too thrilled with, but, you know, that's... part of life sometimes.
Is being behind the 8 ball good or bad?
You know, it kind of depends from your perspective, right?
What are you trying to do?
I know, yeah. Are you trying to block your opponent who just has the 8 ball left? And yeah, that's a great spot.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah. No, I think it adds more chaos at the end of the day.
Gotcha. Well, let us now get into the set review proper.
Right. Let's do it.
And see who's going to win today. I have to say, one disclaimer before we get into things.
Sure.
There's one big difference in this Filthy Casual review to previous ones. So we go off of limited resources, LSV and Marshall. We default to LSV, the pro, the expert. Not to put Marshall down, because he's obviously extremely knowledgeable, very good at the game. But we default to LSV, and I think Marshall would probably approve of that, honestly. Sure. This time, LSV is, I believe, was in Ecuador when this episode was recorded. So he was not available. So they had BK, Abext, come in and take up LSV's duties. So we basically kept the same rules as usual, but now Marshall is our go-to guy.
Very good.
But this means that things are different this time around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you and I were texting about like what difference this is going to make, and Marshall tends to be more pessimistic.
Sure.
And when I first started looking at the grades coming in, I was like, ooh, I nailed it. And very quickly, that changed as I got into the other colors. But let's start with the gold signpost uncommons.
Okay.
And it looks like your first one here is Cinder/Ravager.
Yeah. So, Cinder/Ravager, this one here is 4 red and a green. It's a Phyrexian warrior creature. It's uncommon, 5/5. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each permanent you control with oil counters on it. Has vigilance, and when this card enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. It's a lot of text on that one there. Starts expensive there, but you know, like, what's kind of funny is that there's all but 1 card, and we can talk about that one later. But I just did build around. Yeah, build around for all. Why not? All will be one.
All will be built
around. Yeah. So as far as grades, I gave this one a B. You gave this a build around B. You gave this one a build around C+, and LR gave this a just straight C+, on this one here, not even build around or anything. I think it is build around just for the simple fact that it does, you know, rely. Well, it gets better with oil counters. So if you can play with oil counters, then that's great. But I just really like this card for many, many different reasons. You know, you can get it for less. So I imagine realistically you can get this for 4 or 5 in a dedicated.
I would say 5 is just going to be trivial.
5, yeah.
I think this will almost always come down for 5 mana.
Yep. So 5 mana, 5/5 vigilance creature
that pings all their creatures for 1.
Yeah, and what was that? Goblin Chain Whirler? Was that the one that was 3 red and it dealt 1 damage, all that stuff?
Yeah.
So, there's quite a few. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but there's quite a few 1 toughness creatures. All those mites that are created.
The Phyrexian mites, which are tokens, artifact creature tokens, 1/1,
1/1,
toxic
block.
1, and can't block.
And can't block. So wipes all those out. So, you know, it really hoses a whole entire
And I think there are also goblin tokens, Phyrexian goblin tokens in the set.
Yes, there are.
Lots of 1 toughness creatures.
Yes, so I really think this has a lot of merit to it. I think you're going to get this at a reduced cost. Has vigilance, 5/5. I think 4 toughness, honestly, is probably going to be tough to deal with, honestly. Just with how aggressive this set is. But a smaller attack, or smaller power. So I think 4 is kind of that magic number. For me personally, from what I've seen, if you can get a 4 toughness out there, you're going to block quite a bit of stuff. So I think it really passes the test in all ways for this one here.
Yeah, I think even looking at it and the few games I've seen so far since we did these grades, like we were just watching Newmont the Mummy play some, and both drafts we watched, he was drafting this thing, and it seemed quite good. It was coming down for 4 or 5 mana, killing things when it comes into play. And honestly, like, even if it's a 6 mana 5/5 Vigilance pings everything for 1, that's nothing to sneeze at
Still
either.
Good.
So, yeah, I think this is quite good. And we're not that far off on these grades, but you think it's extra good.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. Next one to talk about for me in the uncommon gold cards is Slaughter Singer. So this is the green-white uncommon. Green and white for a 2/2 Phyrexian Cleric. Toxic 2. So we've mentioned Toxic. We haven't said what it does yet. Yeah. Basically, when this creature hits an opponent, that player gets that many poison counters, equal to the Toxic value. And if you get 10 poison counters, you die. And this creature also has, whenever another creature you control with Toxic attacks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it boosts all your other Toxic creatures +1/+1 when this thing attacks. Yeah. So, grade-wise, you give it a B- build around, obviously.
Of course, yes.
They give it a B. I give it a C+.
Okay.
And my thing about this, I'm curious what you think, because I think there's a real tension when it comes to Toxic, because you're basically attacking on 2 different fronts with Toxic creatures. Yeah. You're adding poison counters, and you're doing regular damage. And having Toxic 2, to me, kind of negates the actual damage it does.
That's fair.
This card is all about the Toxic. So you want to have it with other Toxic creatures.
Sure.
And you want that critical mass. I am just curious how effective it's going to be, how often it's going to actually happen that you poison people out. I don't know, honestly. I've seen it happen already, watching the gameplay. Yeah. And, I mean, it's a serious creature. I mean, if you look at Toxic 2, that's doing 10%, 20% of a player's poison health with 1 swing. But this in and of itself is easy to block. It's a 2-mana 2/2. Yeah. And your opponent is going to block this and going to kill this as quickly as possible. It's all upside. It's a 2-mana 2/2 with a lot of extra things going on. So it's a fine card. I personally, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, these aggressive strategies I just don't like buying into, because you're just so reliant on nailing every drop in order and having the perfect draw. And I'm just not totally buying it.
Yeah, and that's the only defense I'll have on that one is it's any other toxic creature, so you don't have to attack with this one. So unless they're dealing with it, then it's something that can hold back, and it's a pseudo toxic lord, right?
It is, yeah.
So
that Anthem effect is always going to be good if you can enable it.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a half of a lord, right? So only when you're attacking, like the easy example is the mites, the toxic mites there. They go from 1/1s to 2/2. So if you have a nice go wide strategy, that's really going to end the game very quickly.
It is, yeah.
Another thing too with, and again, maybe I'm just trying to come to his defense for no reason whatsoever. I don't really have any allegiance to this card by any means, but adding +1/+1 there, just attacks from both fronts. So this could make some very weird kind of battlefield situations where people have to really pay attention to, oh crap, I'm trying to block here just to not get poison counters, and then, it might just create some weird board states at that point, just to add more pressure. I definitely think, I agree with you, this has to be on curve. It's very, very aggressive. But, I think it has its merits as a build around, and it wouldn't be my first pick by any means of maybe signposts. But I can see where this is. I get so leery after the Civil Servant one, especially it's a
green-white 2/2 that has some bonus stats.
Yeah, I get real nervous with those now.
Yeah, I understand that. All right, let's go on here, though. We've got one more in gold, it looks like, from you. Tainted Observer.
Yeah, so more just a comment around. I'm just very excited for it. I was kind of talking to you a little bit about this as well, just like what your favorite archetype is,
right,
and all that. So let me just read Tainted Observer real quick. So it's 1 green and a blue, uncommon for a 2/3 Phyrexian bird. Has flying, toxic 1. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 if you do proliferate. I think this is doing a whole bunch of stuff. Again, it's got so much good text to it. A lot of really good synergies. I think this is a very good build around here. I don't really have anything much to say about this, but I'm very excited about doing like a teamer deck. I would love to try Tainted Observer and then the Serum Core Chimera.
The blue-red.
The blue-red to get some sort of like teamer action. I just think, for me personally, I think my favorite archetype that I'm most excited to try would be the oil counters. But I just think there's just a lot of really good opportunities with this set. So in that regard, I'm very much looking forward to it.
And like you said, we agree on this one. We're both very positive on this one, giving it a B+. They give it a B-, so they're a little bit... I mean, to me, any flyer that has Toxic... I think is just so good.
Oh, yeah.
And especially like a cheap one like this, and it's got extra upside with the Proliferate. I think I'm very, very bullish on any flyer with Toxic, especially things that cost 3 or 2.
Yes.
Which we'll see going forward as well.
Absolutely.
Oh, God. Okay. On we go into white. And what do you want to talk about here first?
Well... I vote for Swooping Lookout.
Okay, so this is getting us back to, like we said, the 1 white mana thing, which you just got your victory for, which was just a 1/1 first striker for 1.
Nothing.
With a little extra value, gave you some scry later, but that's basically it. This, however, is 1 white mana for an artifact creature, Phyrexian Construct, 1/2, Flying Vigilance.
Sure.
And grade-wise, you gave this a build around... You gave this a B-, sorry. I gave it a C. They gave it a D or F.
Yeah, which I'm not too thrilled about whenever they said that was a D or an F. So my comment was just, so we're back to the 1-drops are just a plain old D and F now at this point. I still think it's very strong. And typically uncommons I usually start at a B- and then I'll kind of adjust from there. So I ended up just leaving it as is with this one. So I really do like this one. It kind of depends on your opinion of equipment. At the end of the day, in my opinion, with this one here. So you got a 1/2 Flying Vigilance. That's great base stats to start equipping with, right? So. I really like this one, and the artwork here is kind of crazy too. It's like it's got all these like wings that are jaws and teeth and snarly and everything else. So, it's ready to hold on to some serious equipment. So, I think this isn't going to single-handedly win a game by any means or anything like that. But I think it's nice and on curve for what White's trying to do, especially like in a red-white like equipment deck. I think this is going to have a great place for it.
I think so too. I think also when you face other aggressive decks that want to press you early, this blocks a lot of things. And
Absolutely.
So, you can just play this and trade with whatever their 1 toughness thing is, and it'll keep you alive for a little bit. The fact that it's an artifact is nice because there are quite a few things in the set that trigger off of artifacts. So I don't know. I look at the past, since we've started doing this, where 1-drops, especially 1-drop flyers, have gone up in their estimation. And I compare this to other 1-drop flyers.
Sure.
I don't see why this is any worse than any of those other ones. So I'm with you. I mean, I gave it the C. I said it was perfectly fine to play.
Yeah, I think it is somewhere in the middle, right?
Yeah.
Where it's, I think you're in a good spot with that one.
Next up, I marked Blade Ambassador. I see my comment here is, what? So let's read that first. Oh, right. This is 1 and a white for a creature, Phyrexian Soldier. 3/1, it enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it. So oil counters are kind of like charge counters from the past. They just mark a resource on the card that can be used up. And this one, you pay 1, remove an oil counter from it, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. So I gave it a C. You gave it a C plus. They gave it a B minus. So they're very positive about this one. I don't like the stats that much, but you actually pointed something out here in your comment where you were comparing it to Adonto Vanguard.
Yes.
So this was from Ixalan, or the Ixalan block. It was 1 and a white, 3/1.
Yep.
And you could pay 4 life to give it
indestructible.
Right.
Yep.
That card was pretty good.
Yeah.
And this one, too, is basically, it's kind of, I was trying to make another comparison. The oil counter that it can use is like a shield counter, basically. You have to pay a mana for it, but it's 1 free round of indestructible.
Right.
And as we discovered in Streets of New Capenna, a shield counter is worth 75%, 80% of a card.
Sure.
So this is basically the same thing, and if you can ever proliferate, then you're just getting more and more value.
Yeah, of course.
So I can see this being reasonable. I think I'm just so turned off by the stats of 2 mana 3/1.
I get that.
But, the fact is, a lot of the reasons that a 3/1 is kind of stinky is that it just dies to everything.
Sure.
And this doesn't really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this is actually better than I made it out to
Sure,
be.
that's fair.
Next up, I have another one marked out here.
Sounds good.
Mandible Justicar. I heard you like teeth, brother.
Oh, yeah. More teeth.
1 and a white. Another 1 and a white, 1 toughness. Like we said, there are a lot of 1 toughness creatures running around. 1 and a white for an artifact creature, Phyrexian Cleric. 2/1, lifelink. Whenever another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn.
Okay.
I give this a C+. You and LR gave this a D or F.
Sure.
And my thinking here is just, in recent sets, we have seen the 2 mana, 2/1 lifelink be reasonable.
Yeah, that's fair.
Especially like we're saying, these sets are all about being assertive, getting on board, being able to block your opponents early on and trade with them. And being able to do that with a lifelinker is especially good.
Sure.
And one that can even get pumped up, I think, is even better.
Yeah.
So I think this will have a place. I don't know if C plus is probably too generous.
Sure.
But I do think this has more of a place in the format than just, junk filler, which is, the D or F category.
Yeah, and in this one here, I'd rather have the Bladed Ambassador just because of, what we talked about. It is effectively a shield counter, so it
does the same thing,
has
but
a little bit more staying power than what something like this does. The life's nice, but especially when you've got poison counters running around and everything like that, lifelink doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So
and Bladed Ambassador could potentially trade for 2 creatures.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, that's an unfair comparison. You're comparing a common to an uncommon, which, but
I think that's fair, though.
So, that would have been my pick with that one there. And I kind of knew that they didn't really like those as well. Like, I'm still a sucker for 1 mana flyers and then also artifacts that create mana. So, I still have my soapbox cards.
Sure.
This one here I knew that they weren't as huge a fan of, so I kind of hedged my bets a little bit.
Yeah,
Thankfully,
you called that one.
I got that.
I mean, this is definitely, you can tell just looking through these grades here, this is definitely more of a Marshall grading system. Like, there's so many more D's and F's than there would be otherwise.
Build around D's and F's and everything else,
Okay, next up, I think this is going to be our first equipment card. You have marked this to talk about Hex Gold Hoverwings.
Yes. So, Hex Gold Hoverwings, it's 3 and a white, it's uncommon equipment.
From Mirrodin!
Yeah, it has what I would argue is one of the dumbest, just most ridiculous mechanic names. It's like, for Mirrodin! Yeah, cool. Whatever. That's what you want to go for, fine, whatever. But for Mirrodin is when this equipment enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 red rebel creature token, then attach this to it. So it comes into play actually attached to a token creature. An equipped creature has flying. Creatures you control that are equipped get +1/+0, and it has equipped 2 and a white. When I graded this one, I'll start off by saying here that I'm already coming up with excuses for this one. I didn't see the text where creatures, like equipped creatures, not just this one here gets +1/+0. It has all of them that are equipped. So I missed that one. I don't know if it would have changed my grade very much, though. I'll be honest. So
I agree. I think that's the least important part of the card, probably.
Yeah. So, essentially, how I graded these for Mirrodin cards in general was I assumed, got the 2/2 creature, and then I'll just see what the stats are with that one. Really I wouldn't say I didn't consider the equip cost or anything like that, but I just kind of want to base its merits off of like what it's doing for me now.
Yeah.
So for 4 mana, you have a 3/2 flyer. Okay, that's fine. So I end up grading this one here at a C-. You gave it a B-, and then LR actually gave this a build around B. So definitely off with this one here. So,
B-.
Yeah, B to B-. Yeah. So you really hit the nail on the head on this one. So, I really didn't have like very many notes on this one. It's like, besides like, it seemed expensive for what you got. So
it is. I mean, when you pay the 4 mana and you get a 3/2 flyer, that would be good enough in today's limited environments. An equipment that gives +1/+0 and flying and costs 3 to move around, also not good enough. I think it's the combination of the two that makes this reasonable. Yeah. A 4 mana 3/2 flyer is interesting. It does get the job done.
Sure.
And there will be lots of games where you can then move this later in the game onto some big creature and finish the job.
Sure, that's fair.
And I think that's what makes this reasonable, is just the fact that there will be games where you just win by moving this onto some big thing. And
that's fair. Yeah.
I agree with you for the most part as far as evaluating 4 Mirrodin cards. 4 Mirrodin!
Yeah.
I just look at the creature that I get, and then maybe the equip cost is interesting.
Sure.
Depending on what it is. This is one of the ones where it's cheap enough that it is kind of interesting, actually.
That's fair.
And it might be good at some point in the game to pay 3 to move this onto something else.
Yeah, I can see that.
Especially if you're getting aggressive. You know?
No, it's true. It seems like red-white is really wanting to be aggressive. You get these equipments to help, kind of push everything through. So, I definitely see its place. I generally overall don't respect equipment all that much.
I don't either.
Yeah, especially like in limited. Like there's obviously great equipment out there. Usually not for limited or anything like that, but every now and then they'll hit.
Yeah.
So.
There are reasonable ones. I mean, in this set we've got some swords running around. One of the swords,
at least. Yeah,
the sword of X and Y, whatever it is. I think the red-green one is the one that's in this set. But I think there are definitely some 4 Mirrodin equipments in this set that are worth considering.
Sure.
All right, last white card we both want to talk about. This one is Apostle of Invasion.
Yeah,
this is the expensive one, right? Yeah, 4 white for a creature, Phyrexian Angel, 4/4 flying, and it has Corrupted, which is a keyword we haven't talked about. Corrupted means that basically it's something that activates once an opponent has 3 or more poison counters.
Yes.
So when this creature is when your opponent is corrupted, this creature gets double strike. So it's a 6 mana 4/4 double strike whenever your opponent's corrupted. Otherwise, it's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer.
Sounds pretty good to me.
It sounds pretty good to me too.
Yeah.
You gave it a build around B.
Sure.
I gave it a C+. They gave it a D or an F.
Oh, okay.
So we're both higher on this card than they are.
Sure.
Obviously. My thought on this is, if I can, let's say, ignore the corrupted.
Yeah, sure.
Let's just say it's always on.
Exactly what I did.
Let's say it's just always on. 6 mana, 4/4 flying, double strike. I think is a great card.
Oh, absolutely. That's a game ender almost.
Yeah, definitely. You play this, your opponent must deal with it.
Yep.
Or they're going to quickly lose to it.
Yes.
Or, if you're behind, this is going to shut down pretty much any attack that they have going on you. Again, that's assuming you have corrupted, which I'm assuming you can do, and from what I've seen so far, you can do. Like, getting corrupted on is not that much of a challenge.
Especially at 6 mana, right?
Yes,
so,
that's a key thing.
Like,
if you have a 2-drop that needs corrupted, you're
tougher.
not doing that on turn 2 or turn 3.
No. But at 6 mana here, that's probably happening. And I really didn't like corrupted overall because it really depended on having something like it's a secondary mechanic that's just kind of a bonus. So most of the time with this one, again, I really just kind of place its merits on, okay, if you don't have corrupted, does still cut the mustard, essentially. So I thought this one did, even at 6/6/4/4 flying.
Not great.
It's not the greatest, right? I mean, it's...
But if you top deck, if you're in parity, drawing a 6-mana 4/4 flyer is a notable addition to the board.
Exactly. But having that corrupted on there, and again, that's why I put the build ground on there. So if you can get to a corrupted state, this one really needs to be dealt with and quick.
Also, I would say, corrupted, it really is just like a switch, because there's nothing, once you turn corrupted on, it's just on.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think there's anything that can remove poison counters in the set.
Not to my knowledge. I know there's a Malera running around, but I don't think she removes counters.
She reduces the amount of counters you get. I think she makes it so that when you get poison counters, if you would get more than one, you just get one. Instead. Something like that.
Sure.
But anyway, once you have it on, it's on. And so I agree with you that by the time you're at 6 mana, you probably have corrupted turned on if you're in a poison corrupted deck. So this looks good to me. And I remember what Marshall said in the podcast was like, it just doesn't feel like a good payoff for the corrupted deck. It's like you're working to put poison counters on somebody, and then you get this big beater in the air. It just doesn't feel cohesive. And I'm like, who cares about how it feels? Who cares about how it feels? Like, it's just a great finisher for this deck. I'm not saying you should really prioritize this card.
Yeah, that's fair.
But
maybe like a 1-up in the deck. Or
something. Like, this is the top-end finisher for that deck. And I think it's quite good at what it does. So, I don't know. I think this card is quite good. I think people will lose to this card.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, on to blue. Do I want to talk about Listener Seer?
What do you think?
Not really.
Okay.
Let's talk about Distorted Curiosity, because I think I've already changed my mind about this.
Oh, okay.
So that might be worth discussing.
Okay.
This is the divination for the set. Yes. 2 and a blue, sorcery, corrupted. So this spell costs 2 less to cast. If an opponent has 3 or more poison counters, draw 2 cards. So it's a divination, but it only costs 1 blue mana if an opponent is corrupted. So I gave this a C. You gave it a build around B. They gave it a B-. I gotta say, I already agree with you. In seeing it in play, seeing it in action, I already think it is that good.
Sure.
I put it at C because I was like, divinations, in most modern sets, a divination is like a D.
Yeah, sure.
It's not that
That's
great.
Fair.
There are some really good ones that make it into the C's, like you can play it.
Sure.
And I thought this was a decent one. So I put it in, I gave it a C. But I've seen corrupted decks that turn on relatively quickly. And when you top deck a Distorted Curiosity, and you can pay blue, draw 2 cards, and then play another spell or 2, it's just such a ridiculous swing. 1 blue mana to draw 2 cards is no joke. So I've revised this grade. I already think it is well worth playing.
Okay.
So
very good.
Kudos to you. I'll just go ahead and mark that as my defeat card right now. So
fair enough.
A little preview for next Filthy Casual review. Next up is Eye of Malcator. This is the 1 in a blue guy, right? Or no, 2 in a blue.
2 in blue.
Oh, this is a different one than I was thinking. 2 in a blue for an artifact. When it ETBs, scry 2. When another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it becomes a 4/4 artifact creature until end of turn.
Okay.
You and I both liked this card a fair amount. We gave it C+, both of us. LR did the classic build around D or F.
All right.
So I will say that's Marshall saying it's a build around D or whatever. BK was on board for this. I forget what grade he gave it, but he saw the merit in this card. I mean, what would you just give a 3 mana 4/4 creature? I mean, that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
How about a 3 mana 4/4 creature that scries 2?
I like it.
It's quite good.
Yeah.
I understand this can't block. It's an aggressive card. But to then say, therefore I would never play this.
Yeah, I don't know about that either.
That's a bit too far for me. I think there is a deck where this is going to be good. And they stack nicely. Like having multiple of these, you play another one, it scries 2, digs for more stuff, and activates your other Eye of Malcators that you have on the battlefield. So I think this is a worthwhile card to investigate. Yeah. I don't think it automatically goes in the trash can.
The one thing that I will kind of say, and this is kind of an odd comment from me. If we go back to that, it's kind of funny. We can actually look literally every card here. See all 8 of these cards that are on our screen right now. They all cost 3 mana.
Yeah,
3 mana. I don't know if it's just me just having a little bias or something like that, but I just feel like so many of these cards in this set. I have nothing I'd have to look at the data and all that stuff, but it just feels like blue in the 3 spot is so crowded that I don't know how much play this will see.
Right.
Now, I still think it has its own merits, and I think it's still a good card and all that. I think its downfall is just that it is in such a crowded space that I don't know if it's going to see much play.
Right.
I think it's going to just be a victim of its casting cost.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And there are other, maybe better things you could do at that mana cost.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
You'd rather commit something to the board that is a permanent addition that's going to be able to attack and block consistently.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right. Moving on, though. Tamio's logbook is your next one.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So I don't know. This one here could have gone either way on this one. So let me just read this one out. So 2 in a blue, uncommon artifact. 5 in a blue, tap it, draw a card. Okay. This ability costs 1 less to activate for each other artifact you control. So obviously the best situation is 1 blue mana, tap, draw a card. Man, that's the nuts right there. Right. So I didn't have this as a build around just because I thought there was enough artifacts.
How much building around do you really have to do?
Exactly. I don't think you need to do all that much for it. And I'm not giving this like an outstanding grade. Like I said, any uncommons starts at a B-, and I actually brought this down to a C+. And then you rated this as a C, so we're close on this one.
Very close.
LR rated this as a D or an F, so unplayable. So as far as the numbers go, the set does have 66 artifacts and artifact creatures, and that does not include the cards that make like mites and stuff like that. So I think there is a nucleus of artifacts in here to make this playable. Realistically, how much mana do you think you'd pay to draw a card for this one? I think 3 to 4.
How low I would want to get this 6 mana cost before I start activating it? Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. So, for example, if it were just 2 in a blue and it had just the ability, no artifact shenanigans, just 2 in a blue, tap, draw a card. I don't think that's super playable.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that's 6 total mana before you get a card back.
Right.
That's a long way to go to get your first card.
Yeah.
And you're probably just getting buried in card advantage. This looks good to me late in the game.
Yeah.
Where you draw this, you've got a bunch of other artifacts sitting around. You play this, and then you're just tapping 1 or 2 mana to draw a card every single turn. You're going to pull ahead and win.
Yeah.
So this is very good in the if you're ahead.
Yep.
Very good if you're at parity.
Yeah. Not so much when you're behind.
Not good when you're behind, and not good when you're building up your position on the board early on.
It's fair, yeah.
Like we said, the 3 mana slot is really in contention here. And when your opponent, let's say your opponent plays a 3 mana toxic creature, and your answer is Tamio's Logbook.
Yeah, that's tough.
That's going to be very sad for you.
It is.
So I think this card suffers from that.
Yeah, and another thing, too, is how often are we going to get to the late game? We already talked about how quick and synergistic this set is looking like, right? So
I think this card could be a good one of if you've already got your early game cinched up. Then this could be an engine that will pull you ahead as the game goes on.
Yeah. No, I get that, and I actually might. I'm at a C+. I might be down there with you at the C- level now. After we talked about that, it's pretty narrow in its focus for that. So no, that's good discussion there.
All right, next up, this is a triumph for me. Meldweb Strider. Strider, is that right?
I think Strider, yeah.
Meldweb Strider.
Yeah.
4 in a blue. For an artifact vehicle, it's a 5/5. Vigilance. Enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it. Remove an oil counter, and it becomes a creature until end of turn. Or you can crew 3 it. This is my ongoing saga of I hate vehicles.
Sure.
Vehicles suck my balls.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I give it a D or F. They gave it a D or F. You gave it a C+. And actually, the note I took here is that Marshall came in clutch for me. as the voice of reason. Yeah. So BK was really talking this one up, and I was like, man, I hate vehicles so much. So he came in there and laid down the hammer on this card.
Okay.
Because it's like 5 mana for a 5/5 vigilance.
Sure.
That's just a normal
that's fair.
magic card.
Yeah.
That's nothing special. It's not that interesting. And this one makes you jump through hoops to make it do anything.
Yeah, that's true.
So I just don't see the point in this card.
Okay.
It's like a normal magic card that doesn't work some percentage of the time.
That's fair.
So ultimately, I don't think this is a great card.
Yeah. Well, no, I have no
rebuttal.
No rebuttal to that.
All
one.
right.
It's one of those where I thought, well, I'm generally not a fan of vehicles either.
Right.
And surprisingly, I don't have this one. I made everything else build around, but I didn't make this one build around. But even at that, it probably would have been like a build around C+.
Sure.
Like I wish this had 2 oil counters. So start with 2 oil counters. I think that is asking too much for this card at common level.
This is just one of those cards where you look at it and it's like, it has so many lines of text. Like,
yeah,
it's got to be good.
Bad, yeah.
But it's like extra lines of text to make it not do anything.
Yeah. No, that's true. No rebuttal here. No arguments.
Okay, do you want to talk about these last 2 cards?
Yeah, got a couple here. Yeah, so the first one here I want to talk about is Vivisurgeon's Insight, where this is 3 blue. It's a common sorcery. Draw 3 cards, proliferate. Nice and simple.
Very
nice and simple on this one here. So this one here, Jace's Ingenuity, right? So that's the other. But it doesn't have the proliferate part. It's just draw 3 cards.
And Jace's Ingenuity is an instant.
It is an instant, yes. Okay, so you're trading instant for proliferate.
Exactly.
Okay. I think in the context of this set,
proliferate is more valuable to you.
I think so, because it just depends so much on counters. Whether that's the oil counters, whether that's poison counters, or whatever. I like it. I really do. I did not like that it was sorcery speed. It's unfortunate, because especially if you get it, like, if you're playing that on turn 5, that's your turn, right? And that's tough. I think this is a later game. I think it maybe kind of, has the same fate as like Tamio's logbook, where it's a later game only.
Refill your hand.
Good for when you're ahead and maybe a parity, but it's tough to kind of come back with that.
Right. So your opponent plays a 5 mana 4/4 haster, and you draw some cards.
Yeah, but hard to deal with on that one. So and that's actually something we started talking about here. I need to kind of watch out for those cards, because I think I fall victim to looking at that. It's like, oh, it's expensive, but you can get a lot out of it. But
it's a 3-for-1. You proliferate.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I need to recognize that, maybe this is not a card. Like, this is just a win more card. I need to kind of remember looking for that kind of stuff there too. But I gave this a B- here. You gave this a C-. They gave it a D or an F, so you were much closer on that one there. And after we had these discussions here with Tamio's logbook and this one here, I would go down on this one as well. Real quick on this one, Watchful Blisterzoa. This is 4 blue uncommon flying. Hang on. All right, there's so much stuff going on with this one here. So it's 4 blue. It is a Phyrexian jellyfish. It's uncommon. It's a 4/4 flyer. Enters the battlefield with an oil counter on it, so I instantly like it right there. I hear oil counter, I'm like, yeah, this is going to be good. When this card dies, draw cards equal to the number of oil counters on it.
So bare minimum, it's a 6 mana 4/4 flyer. When it dies, you draw a card. Replaces itself. And if you can proliferate,
you can
potentially
better.
Draw some more.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying it's what was that Sphinx that you draw 2 cards anytime your opponent draws
Consecrated Sphinx.
Consecrated. I'm not saying it's that, but it reminded me a lot of that, and I don't know. That probably was some bias there. I was like, man, this card's great. I love this thing. So I rated this pretty highly, and this is actually where between Vivisurgeon's Insight and Watchful Blisterzoa, like one right after another, I was like, man, blue's really strong here. I really like blue. So I gave this, I already had a high grade going into Watchful Blisterzoa. I made this one even higher, so this one I have a B. You had a C+, whereas LR had anywhere from D or an F to C-. They were
Fringe playable.
Yeah. So maybe I was just riding that blue high or something,
this card reminds me a lot of the 6-mana flyer we just saw in white, where it's like
that's true. Yeah,
it's a dragon, 6-mana 4/4 flyer,
right.
with additional upside. And this one, it guarantees you again. It's one of those things where they kind of have to deal with this. Mm-hmm. It's a big blocker. It's a threat, and if they do, bare minimum, you're going to be up a card.
Replaces the card, right?
And that's, not taking any additional proliferate into account. That's the floor of this card. Also, like that 6-mana 4/4 flyer we saw in white. You don't want to, have your deck cluttered with these things.
Right.
But having one, I think is perfectly reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that rounds us out in blue.
All right.
And you said you had a few extra blues here. And you were telling me before we recorded that black was A-OK.
Oh, yeah.
In your book.
I was great with black.
So this is Kenny's segment where I get everything wrong. This is really where it went off the rails for me. So I was saying that I was feeling good for a while. I was like, I'm in Marshall's head.
This is where I felt like I was finally getting back on track.
Well, good for you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with the Pestilent Siphoner.
Okay.
Is this the 2-mana flying guy? Yes. 1 in a black, 1/1 Phyrexian insect, flying toxic 1.
Mm-hmm.
Damn. I love this card.
Yeah.
I gave it a B-, you give it a C-, they gave it a C. I think that in the corrupted deck and the straight up toxic want to kill you with poison counters deck, this is the best card for you.
Yeah.
Cheap, flying, toxic. Mm-hmm. I think it's just so important for that deck.
Yeah.
So important to get that first point of toxic on so you can start proliferating, quickly get up to corrupted. Good to push through constant, annoying, toxic damage if you're trying to poison them out. I just think this card is so important in multiple strategies that it's going to be in high demand.
Yep.
Which is why I give it the B-.
Well, every now and then, we see each other's notes whenever we're putting this together and all that.
Yeah.
Every now and then we get one of those ones where it's like, I don't know what I was thinking, and it's just like, this grade's just off. That's where I am on this one, but I just kind of weasel my way into just getting the same grade because I'm with you. I think this is a great card. I don't know why I was C-, whatever. Usually in general, B- for my uncommons, C- for my commons, and then I'll adjust from there. So I left this one as is. I believe I had the C- there for this one. I don't know why. I should have been much, much higher on this one because, absolutely. If you really want to go with a toxic strategy, this is what you want.
This is such a crucial player.
Absolutely. This actually reminds me of, which one was it in Kamigawa? Okiba Reckoner Raid? Remember how people did, were kind of cool on that one?
Yes,
and it wasn't
including us.
Yeah, we were too. This actually reminds me of that kind of card as well. Just really great, quick enabler, and I think cards like this are going to be very surprisingly good in this set. Yeah,
I think it's going to be one of the most annoying things in this format when your opponent plays black, and on turn 2 they play a Pestilent Siphoner, and you're just going to go, "Fuck me."
Absolutely, no. This is definitely your triumph card. I'm going to call this one already.
Okay.
You had your defeat card already.
I did, yeah.
You called your defeat card. I'm calling your triumph card.
Okay.
I bet this is your triumph right here.
Okay. Well, we'll come back to this and see how we did.
Yeah.
So there's plenty more of the shit pile for me to pick through here. Bone Picker Scourge.
Okay.
Where's this bad boy at? Right there. 2 in a black for a 2/2 Phyrexian Imp flying, and with Corrupted, as long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, it has Death Touch and Lifelink.
Okay.
So if you have Corrupted, this is a Vampire Nighthawk, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
So really, we both agree, I think, that Vampire Nighthawk is an excellent limited card.
I would love to see that card more often.
And so the question really is, how often are you going to have Corrupted activated?
At 3 mana.
Because if it's on more often than not, this card is obviously great because it's just Vampire Nighthawk.
Sure.
And if you don't have it on more often than not, it's not that good.
Yeah.
In my opinion, on turn 3, are you going to have Corrupted turned on? Not most of the time.
I mean, if you have that previous card, right?
Then you could potentially.
Yeah, potentially.
There are ways to do it.
Yeah.
But probably not. This will probably come down just as a 2/2 flyer on 3, which is below the curve for Modern Limited. But again, judging from what I've seen in the few games that I've watched, getting corrupted turned on is not that big of a challenge.
Yeah.
So I think more often than not, this is just going to be by turn 4 or 5. This will turn on, or when you draw it later, you already have corrupted. It's just 3 mana 2/2 flying death touch lifelink, which is a tremendous card.
I like that. Yeah, that sounds great.
So I think this is worth considering. I gave it a C+. You gave it a C, so we both agree. The fact that it's not always on takes a chunk out of it.
Right.
But a fine card.
Yeah.
They gave it a C- to a D or F.
Okay.
Well, I wrote a lot here.
You did.
I was just basically comparing this to another previous card.
Fair enough.
But I just think this is a fine card.
Yeah, sure.
Windrake is not that good. Vampire Nighthawk is very good. This card is somewhere in between. I think it leans more towards Vampire Nighthawk. Yeah. So I think it's, somewhere between a normal playable and a pretty good playable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is where you and I land. What's up? Ravenous Necro Titan. This is the 4 mana 6/6, I think.
Yeah, I think you're going to say the reason why I didn't really have any conversation pieces on there because you and I had this. Yeah, you already said everything, and I was like, well, hell, this is okay.
So this is 2 black 4 mana for a Phyrexian Horror 6/6. So 4 mana 6/6.
I love cards like this. Abyssal Persecutor is my absolute favorite card in all of Magic.
I remember, yeah.
Absolutely.
I remember. The catch is, it has corrupted. When it enters the battlefield, you sacrifice a creature unless an opponent is corrupted.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So, it's a 4 mana 6/6, so you have to sacrifice something when it comes into play. Or, if they're corrupted, it's a 4 mana 6/6. I think both of these cases are pretty damn good.
If you have a Might...
Totally.
Whatever. I don't care.
Or you played some cheap corrupt creature early to get in that corrupt damage, and you're having trouble getting all the way through. You can sacrifice that.
Yeah.
And I just think oftentimes they'll be corrupted already. You'll top deck this, and you'll be able to play this.
Yeah.
Have a huge body on the battlefield. Maybe play a couple spells. I just don't see much of a problem with this card.
No, I mean it's very vanilla, right? Once it's on the. But it's just such a low curve.
It has keyword big.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and big is enough sometimes.
And we said B-. We both did. They said D or F. I wonder if BK was with me. My comment is, sir. To be fair, he then, Marshall, that is, goes on to say that if you build around this thing, it routinely comes in as a 6/6 for 4 mana. To which I say that's a build around.
That is a build around.
Yeah,
I thought that's the definition of one.
It is. BK gave this a C+, B-.
See, BK,
he's on our.
He knows
page.
what's up. Yeah.
On this one, we are in agreement with BK. So I think Marshall's being a little pessimistic there, not giving credit to the upside. But that's Marshall's entire MO is that he looks at the downside much more than the upside of a card.
That's fair. The realist.
Yeah, I think the thing is LSV, I think, is the realist. He's the one who looks at the two situations and says, you should probably average out your expectations.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
And Marshall wants to say, well, I want to start at what's the floor. And that's how I evaluate cards.
Okay.
Let's see. Gulping Scrap Trap.
Oh, I just love that card.
Yeah. Right, the Toothy Vagina Monster.
Yeah.
4 and a black for a 4/4 Phyrexian Horror. When it ETBs or dies, proliferate. So 5 mana 4/4, you proliferate when it comes in, you proliferate when it dies.
Man, that sounds awesome.
I know. We both gave it C+. Again, Marshall gave this the old D or F. I think that's 5 mana 4/4, of course that's not good enough by itself.
Sure.
But 5 mana 4/4 proliferate.
I like that.
Already like that.
Yeah.
And another guaranteed proliferate. If you are trying to poison someone out, this sucks for your opponent.
Yeah, it really does.
Because it ticks them up another poison counter. And then they have to look at this thing and be like, well, I can't let that thing die realistically.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could start smashing with this thing. I think there's a decent amount of potential here. Let's see, what do they say about this? I wanted to talk about this with the next card.
Okay.
So do you mind if I go ahead and talk about this as well? So the next card is Nimrazor Paladin. Again, 4 and a black for a 4/4.
Okay.
Same stats. Uncommon. This has Toxic 2. And when it enters the battlefield, return target creature card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay.
I gave that a B-. They gave it a B. You gave it a C+. We're in the general ballpark. I just don't see how these two cards are that different from each other.
No.
Body-wise, they're the same. 5 mana 4/4s. They both help you along the poison, toxic, corrupted plan. And honestly, I don't care that much that Nimrazor Paladin has Toxic 2, because Toxic 2 is equivalent to having 4 power, which this thing already has.
Exactly, yeah.
So I don't really care about that. And it buys back a creature that costs 3 or less to your hand.
Okay. Sure.
They're not that different, is my point. I don't see how one is a D and the other one's a B.
Right.
I think they're pretty equivalent, which I gave one a C+ and one a B-. You gave them both C+.
I gave them both C+, yeah.
So I see these as being very similar,
yeah.
And they give this kind of night and day look at them. So, not buying it.
No, I don't think I am either.
Okay.
I don't think so either.
We're ready for red, and we'll start by talking about Cacophony Scamp. And I'll let you introduce the card and share your initial thoughts, because I've been talking for a while.
Sounds good. Do you have any words that you just can't pronounce for the life of you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so cacophony is one of those. It's always cacophony. That's how Cacophony Scamp. So if I say that, just be pre-warned. I don't. English is my first language, and I don't even do that well. So Cacophony Scamp is red 1/1 Phyrexian Goblin Warrior. It's an uncommon. Whenever this card deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, proliferate. When this card dies, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. Weird card. Just a really weird... I really struggled to actually rate this one. And I knew whatever would happen is probably going to be wrong.
Yeah, right.
Is
this a B? Is this an F?
Yeah, I know. I don't think there was really anything in... it wasn't in between, so of course I naturally rated in between. So I'm trying to even it out just a little bit. So I rated it as a C. You rated it as a C. So we're
I basically did the same thing.
Yeah. It's well, what the hell am I supposed to do with this thing? So I can either be way off or right on. I wasn't feeling very good about this whole thing. So I'm let's just kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah.
But, of course, LR grades this as a D or an F on this one. I get it. I have no rebuttal to it. I don't see where this one's actually that great. I really don't.
No. It's kind of one of those cards where, again, it's an uncommon.
Yeah.
So that makes me think, well, maybe there's something to it that I'm not quite seeing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's one of these 1-drops, which, we've said, historic or in recent history, has been better than anticipated.
Right.
And look at all this text. It's how can this
much?
How can this be bad? This uncommon 1-drop with so much text.
I love the proliferate.
But at the end of the day, it's a 1-mana 1/1 with no other combat features going on.
Yeah.
So it just, as soon as they play a 2 toughness creature, this thing just well,
see you later.
I don't really have anything to do now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just not. I don't even know if they're it's a goblin. It's not an artifact. I just don't see this really even in the equipment deck. I don't see this really making much of an impact. It just really doesn't have a home anywhere.
It doesn't hold equipment well.
No.
I don't even love it in the oil deck. I mean, I understand it has the word proliferate on it, but you're using a whole card to proliferate. Does not seem that good.
And you certainly don't want this later in the game.
No.
If you're drawing this turn 6, turn 7, you're oh shit, this sucks.
Only thing I can say in favor of it is we've said there are a lot of 1 toughness creatures running around. This can trade for 2 of them.
Yeah,
it dies, it does damage equal to its power to any target. It does trade up, it kills a 2 toughness thing as well.
Sure.
I mean, so it does a little bit more than a 1-mana 1/1, but not that much.
Not much more.
So I don't think it's that good, actually.
No, I agree.
All right, my next card I want to talk about is Free from Flesh. A combat trick. 1 red mana, a single red mana for instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. put 2 oil counters on it.
I like oil.
I do like oil. I think 1 mana instant creature gets +2/+2 is already not the worst thing in the world.
No.
It's playable.
Yep.
And it will win combat. It can push through damage. It can randomly win you the game.
Especially at our Elo.
Does all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But getting 2 oil counters out of nowhere, there's all kinds of things you can do with oil. So adding 2 oil counters on top of a combat trick, I'm already kind of keen on. I really like.
Yeah.
So I gave it a C. They gave it a C. Gave it a C minus. The only thing I wanted to say is I think it's probably even better than I made it out to be here. I tempered my grade. I wanted to give this
I did too.
A very good grade.
Yeah.
It's probably too much to say it gets into the B category.
Yeah.
But
I do C+.
We always talk about this in all these set reviews. I already like these cheap combat tricks.
Yep.
And so if you give me some extra stuff on top of it, I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it makes me think of from a few sets ago, there have been a couple of blue, they're not combat tricks, but they basically are, where it's like turn an artifact into a 4/4, turn a thing into a 4/4 creature, draw a card.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, it's a combat trick and also gives you something else on top of it.
Yeah.
This kind of falls into that category. Did you have any other notes?
No, I was just going to say I agree with everything you were saying with this one here. I had to temper my expectations with this one because we're playing the game here, right? We're trying to get as close to LR as possible.
We know they don't like combat tricks.
They don't like them. They certainly don't.
I will say this. I noticed that neither of us wanted to talk about counter spells this time around in blue. So we learned our lesson on counter spells.
We did, yeah. I think we're getting there.
All right, next up, Nahiri's Sacrifice. Don't remember what this one does. I missed it. There it is.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Oh, right. 1 in a red sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature with mana value X. It deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures. So you sacrifice a thing, and it does damage divided amongst a bunch of targets. Oh, multiple targets.
Sure.
You gave it a C, I gave it a C+, they gave it a D or F. I just see a lot of potential with this card to blow out an opponent, kill multiple things. They left behind some blockers. You blow up their blockers with your pacified creature or whatever.
Yeah.
Or your lockdown creature, and you just destroy them out of nowhere.
You remember that there was a green card back in the Kamigawa set where it dealt, there was like a whirling kick or something.
Triple roundhouse kick or hurricane feet. I don't remember what it's called. But yes.
General premise there, and that made for a lot of blowouts on there. And that, I was just now thinking of that card whenever you were talking about that a little more.
I thought about that exact same card when this card came up.
And that card ended up being pretty good.
It did.
It did.
I should have thought about that going into the grading because Marshall famously did not like that card.
Oh, he did not?
He did when he was grading it. And he said a very similar thing here. So BK gave this a B, to be fair.
Okay.
And Marshall... he basically said that this card might be one of the most powerful things that you could do in the format, if used correctly.
Okay.
Which, again, I'm like, I agree.
Yeah.
But then you can't say it's a D or F if it's one of the most powerful things you can do. I guess his point is it's very hit or miss, right?
Oh, that's fair.
When you play it and it works, you will look like the ultimate badass.
Of course.
And then some amount of the time, it will be sitting in your hand. You're like, I can't do fuck all with this. Yeah. I wish this was a 3-mana 3/3 or anything else.
He's just thinking it's too narrow.
I think so.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I thought that is valid. But
I suppose so. Again, he doesn't really leave in the room for the upside of the card. Right. Which, me personally, I also won't play this card. I just feel like Marshall kind of... He lets his own playstyle determine what grade he wants to give the cards. Like, I don't love playing combat tricks, but I look at something like that combat trick we just looked at and said, this is a fine card.
Sure.
And I feel like the same thing applies here. I don't want to play this because it is so hit or miss, but it hits sometimes, and that needs to be taken into consideration. Which one is this?
All right. Well, I've got I've got one here on this one here. We're looking through the cards we want to talk about here. So I've got a couple here in red myself. Rebel Salvo being one of them. So this one here is 2 in a red. It's an instant. It's uncommon. Affinity for equipment. So it means a spell costs 1 less to cast for each equipment that you control on the battlefield. This card deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. That permanent loses indestructible at the end of turn. I gave this a C+, so I actually downgraded this from the original B-.
Where you start.
Yeah. I think it's truly just my hatred of equipment, and that stuff really comes back to bite me. And it talks about, you were just talking about like play styles and that. So that is my play style faux pas, right? So that's one of those things where I'm like, if it's equipment, I'm probably out, unless this thing is like one of the big bad swords or something like that. That's just like too good to pass up on.
Right.
This is where it comes back to bite me here. So like I really missed here. So I gave this a C+. You gave this a B+, which you were spot on. So kudos to you there. Whereas LR gave us a B+ to A- range. So I don't remember any A's per se, like a straight up A on this one, but this was one of them that was about as close as it gets on this one here. And I know this is my
like a blind
hatred
spot
of I wouldn't say hatred or anything. I think blind spot's a very accurate description of it. So just don't like equipment. That's just where I miss on those.
I would say also this is one of those cards, we've mentioned this in the past, where that extra line of text, even though it's all upside, it makes you think, I don't care about equipment.
Yeah.
Whereas if this just said 2 in a red instant, it does 5 damage to a creature or planeswalker, it loses indestructible.
Yeah.
You'd probably look at that and be like, that's a nice
pretty
card.
damn good. Yeah.
So the equipment thing is like extra stuff on top, makes it even better. But 3 mana, deal 5 to anything, and kills indestructible things is great.
Yeah, that's great.
Already very good. Yeah. And you also had marked here Full Shock Splitter.
Yep. Let's just keep it on
another
the
equipment.
Yep. So this one here is 3 in red, common equipment for Mirrodin. Oh god. So the 2/2 red rebel creature with this attached to it. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. So 4 mana, you get a
4 mana 4/2.
4 mana 4/2, and equipped 2 in a red. Again, at least I'm consistent. I don't like them, so I gave this a D or an F. You gave this a C-, so barely playable, but playable nonetheless. LR gave this a C+ here.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised.
Yeah, I am a bit surprised as well. They generally don't like equipment as much either, so I thought this would actually be a nice little pick-me-up on this one, or to get me a little bit closer. But no, I just missed on this one, so...
Yeah, I mean, obviously a 4 mana 4/2 is not good by itself.
Not crazy about it.
This kind of reminds me of the white one, the +1/+0 and flying.
Yeah.
Same equip cost, 3 mana. Being able to, for 3 mana, give any of your creatures +2/+0 is really intimidating. Imagine just throwing this on your Phyrexian Mites.
Yeah.
Now your opponent has to throw a real creature
right
in front of this stupid thing.
Well, and this is why I was saying that I think 4 toughness is a real good, because it's because of cards like this here that like 3/1s and stuff like that are probably going to be a problem. So I'm personally looking for stuff like, if I'm in that position, I would love to have a 4 toughness creature, because then I can probably block whatever you're going to throw at it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about this one. Oxida Finisher. It's the expensive. One of these colors has an expensive one. And I overrated it. We both did.
Sure.
That's fine. We'll move on to green.
All right.
And I'm feeling thirsty.
Ooh, thirsty for the roots.
Give me that root.
Ooh.
This is the classic, fine playable card.
Sure.
That I think you will cut most of the time. It's a green, single green, sorcery, choose one, search for a basic land and put it in your hand, or proliferate. I mean, sure, it's nice to be able to exchange this for a basic land and smooth out your draws.
Yeah.
But then the alternative is proliferate, which is in my mind anyway, not worth a full card.
Okay.
In most situations. I think Proliferate is not going to be worth a full card. In some situations it will be, but generally not.
Sure.
And I'd rather just play some other card.
Okay.
That actually makes presence on the board.
Sure.
Does that kind of thing.
Sure.
This kind of reminds me of Opt,
Yeah,
the
sure.
1 mana cantrip. Like it's never bad to play.
Right.
You're not going to feel embarrassed. It's going to work fine in your deck. I just think you're going to have better things to do than put Thirsting.
It's on the chopping block pretty quick. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep, I get that.
Which is why I gave it a D or F. They gave it
Sure.
a C, you gave it a C+. I assume it's because you value the Proliferate pretty high.
I value Proliferate high, but I also think this has good opportunity in case you're trying to go more than 2 colors. This is a good opportunity to be able to do that. And I like that it has the 2 modes. There's like, if you have all your lands, you're doing okay. You have that Proliferate as a backup. Yeah, I put C+ on this one here. I personally like that, and I did rate anything that had Proliferate a little bit higher just because...
You're an oil man. You're a
I'm
family
an
man.
oil man. Yep, I'm an oil man. But yeah, anything, like, there are so many counters in this set here, and Proliferate is just good for counters. So I thought that would be a nice fundamental mechanic for throughout this whole thing. So, yeah, I ended up rating this one a little bit higher.
Fair enough.
Yep.
Fair enough. Ooh, I'm glad we agree on this card. Kinkerbloom.
Well, yeah, we do.
This card is great.
Yeah.
I love this card. 1 and a green for a 3/2. Already
Love it.
solid.
Great. Good stats.
Above average stats.
Sure.
Already good. And then it has 1, sacrifice it, choose 1, destroy target artifact, destroy target enchantment, or
Proliferate.
your favorite keyword.
I mean, what could be better at that?
Honestly,
at that 2 mana cost right there.
2 mana above average stats that also gives you all kinds of options to do cool
Yes.
stuff later on. And especially, I get that this is a Mirrodin set that isn't as artifact focused as other Mirrodin sets, but
sure.
it does have an above average artifact count. There are artifacts
Yes.
running around all over the place. There are all these equipments running around all over the place. And this card is just great. I'll play as many of these as I can get, basically.
Absolutely. And destroy target enchantment as well on there. There's plenty of those pacifism-esque...
Pacifisms,
yep.
There's Ossification, which is like a
Ossification.
Journey to Nowhere. There's
Yep.
the blue tap down a thing.
Yep.
There's all kinds of stuff running around.
Plenty of
There's
those.
Tamio's something or other. It's like an icy manipulator. This card is so good.
Yeah, I agree. I think this has so many hits. You're going to be hitting a lot more times than not. It is viable throughout the whole game. Great card.
You gave it a B. I gave it a B+. They gave it a C+. I was shocked that they gave it
I am shocked as well.
that low of a grade. I'm sure I said as much. This and the Armored Scrap Gorger above do so many damn things. Also, the fact that one of the modes is an undercost on your undercosted 2-drop is killing artifacts is gross.
Yeah.
What does the Scrap Gorger do?
It's one that'll tap.
Oh, right. This is
Love those cards.
1 and a green. Taps for any color of mana you want.
Great.
Gets +3/+0 as long as it has 3 more oil counters on it. And when it becomes tapped, you exile a card from a graveyard and put an oil counter on it. So this is a 2-mana dork. Taps for any color of mana, enabling the teamer nonsense or whatever else you want to get up to.
Exactly.
And then eventually just turns into a 3/3 and starts brawling and blocking and stuff.
Yeah.
God, this does so much stuff. Why are these cards being it's just so good.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's
I
wild.
truly don't.
All right. Onward. Another card we agreed on here.
We did, yeah.
Unnatural Restoration. This is the regrowth, right?
Yes.
1 and a green sorcery. Return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. And
Proliferate.
there it is again.
Yeah.
Regrowth is a fine card.
Sure. Yeah,
It's
great.
a perfectly fine card. Throwing Proliferate on top of it.
Just cherry on top.
Yeah, I think it takes... regrowth is okay.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing wrong with playing
Sure.
it. It's always going to be fine. Adding 2 mana on top of, the best thing in your graveyard is good. And then Proliferate, I think, is the thing that bumps it a little bit over the edge. So we both gave it C+. They gave it a D or F.
Yeah.
I don't totally buy that.
Yeah.
All right. The best common in the set, potentially?
I think so. I just really, really like this card. It's Contagious Vorak, which is 2 and a green. It's a 3/3 Phyrexian Boar Beast. common or beast. When Contagious Vorak enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on bottom of your library in random order. If you didn't, put a card in your hand this way. Proliferate instead.
So it's a 3-mana 3/3 that either gets you a land into your hand or proliferates.
Proliferates, yeah.
Kind of your choice.
It's, remember that one cantrip-ish kind of card where you can either put a land into your hands
or
and
proliferate
there. Like, that's this on a 3/3
for 3
body. That's, oh man, how
with
fantastic
only a
is
single
that?
green pip. I think that's important too.
Yeah, it's splashable. This enables multicolor if you want. So,
an easy 2-for-1.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this card. We all rated it highly, so I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one thinking, oh yeah, this is such a great card. So I gave it a B-, you gave it a B-, LR gave it a B. So we all agree, great card.
All on the same page.
See a lot of play. Yeah.
Love it. A card we are not all on the same page on.
Exactly. It's Expand the Sphere. So this one here is 3 and a green. It's uncommon sorcery. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. Put up to 2 land cards from among them onto the battlefield tapped, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If you put fewer than 2 lands onto the battlefield this way, proliferate a number of times equal to the difference. So, at the end of the day, you can look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can put 2 lands into play tapped. You can put 1 in there and proliferate once, or you can proliferate twice. Man,
cacophony.
I know. Yeah, cacophony. I generally like cards like this because A, proliferate. It works very well in the set. B, this smooths out your curve. It's just lands. It's not even basic lands. So if you have... we'll talk about this here in just a little bit once we get to the land section, but there's a lot of those. They come into play tapped.
They're spheres.
Yeah, the spheres. So the sphere cards, I like those. They're already coming into play tapped, but you can actually use those to draw cards later on. So if you just get a couple of those in there, they're already played out. I think those are great. I just think there's a lot of really good options with this card here. I recognize that it's a sorcery speed. It's 4 mana, so, if you're playing that on turn 4, it doesn't feel very good, right? Especially if your opponent's playing something else that's pretty aggressive, which this set kind of leans to, it seems like. All that being said, I said expand the sphere. I rated it as a B-. You rated it as a C, so you thought it was playable, but yeah, kind of, filler at that point. LR rated this as a D or an F, so we're pretty far off. I'm pretty far off from LR, but
I am too.
We'll see on this one.
Yeah, I think this kind of falls in, like you said, that same category of like turn 4. Can you really afford to be taking a turn off and not doing anything? Is there much of a ramp deck in this set? I really haven't seen.
I haven't really seen that either.
And I think that might be the downfall of this card, is that what are you ramping into?
That's fair.
There's not that much. Yeah. Maybe there are some rares where this card all of a sudden gets pretty good.
Right.
Where it's like, all I need to do is get enough mana to cast this Mythic Rare Bomb.
Yeah.
And then I'm golden.
Yeah.
And then maybe this gets really good.
That's true.
I don't know.
So we'll see.
Next up, Oil Gorger Troll. I didn't realize how much of a tongue twister that was until I just said it.
There's some real doozies in this set.
Oil Gorger Troll. It's 3 green for a Phyrexian Troll Warrior. 3/4. When it ETBs, you gain 3 life.
Okay.
Then, if you control a permanent with an oil counter on it, draw a card. I mean, hell, I'm looking at best case here.
Yeah.
Which I know I'm not supposed to do, but I'm looking at the best case here.
Sure.
5 mana, 3/4, gain 3, draw a card. Sick.
I think that's fantastic.
That's such a great card.
At 5 mana with a little bit of oil like synergy,
right?
You're going to be doing those things.
All you need is 1 permanent with an oil counter.
Yeah.
I think if you are in red-green, you will do that without even trying.
Yep.
So I would not even call this a build around. I think most of the time this is going to be 5 mana, 3/4, gain 3, draw a card.
I think it's fantastic.
Which is disgusting.
Yeah.
And we graded it as a C+.
Sure.
We didn't even put it in the B category.
I know, we didn't.
And they said DRF, which I just think is absolute madness. I said, no way! So both of the boys, when they were discussing it, they liked this card in the Oil Proliferate deck, and they think it will do work. But the reason they didn't give it a higher grade is they don't think you're going to have to fight for this card. They think you're going to be able to get this card if you want it, and I just don't agree.
What's it matter if you don't have to fight for it?
I don't know.
I don't know. I just think it's a good card on its own.
It adds to the board. It's going to block for you. It's going to gain you life. It's going to it makes up for itself right away when you play it. It's understated. That's the only negative thing I have to say about it. 5 mana for a 3/4 body. It's not the best, but I think it does so much to stabilize you that I just think it's really cool.
Well, like I said, I still swear by the 4 toughness in this set. I think that's really going to make or break a lot of games.
Yeah.
I really do.
And if you get a bunch of these, chaining these is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
How are they killing you through this thing?
Exactly.
Oh, boy, right. I remember this.
You had a run there, didn't you?
Yeah, this is the nightmare realm.
Yeah.
So the last 3 cards in green, I'll just talk about all of them at once, I guess. Starting with Sky Scythe and Golfer. This is 5 green for a 6/5 Phyrexian Beast, Reach Trample. Can't be blocked by creatures with flying. So 6/5 Reach Trample for 6. Great stats.
Yeah.
And also can't be blocked by creatures with flying. I mean, that's not the most relevant extra text, but it's
something.
It's gravy.
Yep.
Sylvok Battle Chair. 4 green equipment for Mirrodin. Equipped creature gets +4/+4 and has trample. So it's a 6 mana, 6/6 trample.
Okay.
Totally neutral on stats.
Okay.
And it has equipped 5 green. I mean, that's
getting up there.
That's a fuck ton of mana.
Yeah, that's getting up there.
But it also turns literally any creature on the battlefield on your side into a monster.
Yeah,
you put this on your Phyrexian Might, that thing is rumbling.
It's a 5/5 trample.
Toxic 1. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
And lastly, Paladin of Predation, 5 green for a 6/7 Toxic 6. So this will put 6 poison counters if it connects, and it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, so it's hard to block as well. So, these cards, in order, I gave a C+, B, B- to. They gave DRF, DRF.
See, you had the problem in green that I had with blue. I'm thinking, man, this color's awesome here, and then all of a sudden, like, no, it really isn't, though. Not according to LR.
Yeah, I got slammed on these, and some of them I agree with, and some of them I still want to hold out on my opinion.
Yeah.
Sky Scythe and Golfer, I kind of agree with them. At the end of the day, this is just a dork.
Okay, yeah.
There's so much, like you said, there's so much synergistic things going on in this set. There's so much to do. And just playing a guy is probably not good enough.
Sure.
The Battle Chair, I think, actually is pretty reasonable. A 6 mana, 6/6 Trampler for 6 is good. It will shore up the board. And unlike the stupid Engulfer, if this thing dies, you still have a valuable card on the battlefield that will kick in at some point.
Well, it's a good that 4 mana card that either got the 2 lands or proliferates twice.
Right.
This is a good target, right?
Yeah.
So these next 2 are.
Yeah. And Paladin of Predation, I mean, this is going to come down on boards and just ruin people's lives, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Let me see here. Yeah, the only comment I really have is if you go and listen to LR talk about the end of green here, these 3 cards, Sky Scythe and Golfer, Sylvok Battle Chair, Paladin of Predation. If you just listen to what they're saying about the cards, you'll be like, man, these guys love these cards. And then they're just like, I'd give it a D+. I'd give it
just out of left field,
an F-.
Yeah.
I don't think this is playable. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Sure.
I think probably it's a little choked at this side of thing. Like, you've got these 3 cards that cost 6 or 7 each. You don't need all these, so you'll get some.
Oh, sure.
You'll get some 6-drop. It really doesn't matter. It does devalue the cards overall.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. So we're rounding it out here. We're getting into the artifacts and lands, as you were referencing earlier.
Yeah.
We have a cycle of Skull Bombs.
Skull Bombs, yep.
Not Spell Bombs, but they're obviously a riff on the Spell
Yeah.
Bombs. So all of these are 1 generic mana to play for an artifact. They all have 1 sacrifice to draw a card, and they have an additional sacrifice ability for colored mana, and they do various things.
Yeah. The only question I really have is, did you have a favorite of the 5, since they did a cycle of them?
I mean, honestly, the one I liked the most is the one I want to talk about, which is Dross Skull Bomb, the black one. This one, it's the only ability that differentiates it is 2 and a black, sacrifice it, return target creature card from a graveyard to your hand, draw a card, and activate only as a sorcery. They all have that. This is the only ability of all these different Skull Bombs that actually nets you a card. Because they all sacrifice, and draw you a card and give you some effect. This one gets you a card from your graveyard and draws you a card. So this is the only 2-for-1 out of all of these cards, just on its face. And to me, that was, worth considering. Yeah, worth thinking about. I didn't give this an exceptionally better grade than any of the other Spell Bombs. I gave C pluses and 1 C minus. I gave this a C plus. I thought it was one of the better ones. They give it a D or F. And their thought is you just don't have time to do this. They just think paying a total of 4 mana for a Raise Dead isn't worth it. Okay. But it's more than a Raise Dead. It's Raise Dead and you draw a card. Yeah. And you're not paying it all at once. So I think, again, this card is at least worth considering. Sure. I don't think it's a D or F.
Yeah, that's fair.
But then again, I think maybe all these Skull Bombs kind of fall in the same category of like, are we really going to be playing any of these? I don't know.
For me, personally, I think the Surgical Skull Bomb is probably the most likely for myself to play. Yeah, where it's 2 and a blue, sack it, return target creature to its owner's hand, draw a card, activate a sorcery. So,
tempo play that draws you a card.
Tempo play, yeah, exactly. So I think that might see some fringe play, but I don't know. We both don't see these as more than like filler. Yeah. Right, so I think it's just that. Like these are filler cards that's great if you can make them work.
They all have 2 mana of any color cycle.
Yep, exactly.
Which makes them, they're all reasonable just from that. Sure. An artifact, that cycles for 2 mana.
Yeah, sure.
Nothing wrong with that.
Not bad.
And I think, Dross Skull Bomb, I think it fits in just fine with the rest of this nonsense. Okay, did you want to talk about this? Oh, I wrote that, never mind. We'll go on to Mere Convert.
Okay. That's good.
Right. Mere Convert. 2 generic mana for a 2/1 with Toxic 1. It's an artifact creature, Phyrexian Mirror. It has tap, pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color. So I look at this thing, I see 2 generic mana for a 2/1. Not
any color can play it.
That's true.
Yep.
That's true. But not great stats.
No.
You wouldn't play that on its own. Toxic 1. It's the equivalent of having 2 power, which this thing already has. So also kind of not interested in that. And pay 2 life, add 1 mana of any color. You can't activate that many times in the game and hope to win. So all these things come together for me, and it's like I'm not super interested in this.
That's fair.
Is that true? Yes, I gave it a D or F. You give it a C plus.
Yeah.
I don't love the 2 mana 2/1 Toxic 1 dudes.
That's fair.
There's a lot of Toxic running around in the set, and I think you can do better. Again, this is why I think the 2 mana flying Toxic 1s are just like, compare this to the Phyrexian Insect, the Pathogen.
Oh, much rather have something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, I don't know. Maybe the idea is that this thing does enough things and is colorless that you will play this.
Yeah, and that was my thought process with this one. Again, this is an uncommon, so for me it always starts at a B minus, and then I adjust from there. So I actually knocked it down to a C plus.
Right.
So I'm not overly thrilled by it, right? So my thought is it can play in any color deck. It's early enough to where the pay 2 life and a mana of any color. A, can smooth out your curve. B, if you have more than two colors in here, which I think is doable. I think this is a very splashable set.
Yeah.
So I like that. And it might just get you a little bit ahead of the curve. I don't expect to be paying 2 life a lot with this card. I really don't. I think this is just nice.
But there'll be occasions, you play this on 2, and then on turn 3, let's say you have a 4-mana Planeswalker.
Yep.
Boom.
If you're able to curve with this card here, man, this card's great. But if not, if you're on this kind of late, it kind of sucks. So it can go either way for me.
But it's a 2-mana card.
It is.
I mean, you don't expect most of your 2-mana cards to be that great later in the game.
Exactly.
I'm going to skip ahead while we're talking about Mirror to talk also about Mirror Custodian.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So this is a common. 3 generic mana for a 2/3. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. Then each opponent may scry 1. We all agree that this card sucks balls, right?
No, it's not good.
I'm not paying 3 mana for an understated thing that lets my opponent get some scrying action.
I know.
Okay, so now we can talk about the last of the Mirror here. These are the only 3 Mirror. The last 2 we've talked about in this one. Mirror Kinsmith. 4 generic mana for a 3/1 Mirror. Ooh, stinky.
Oh, okay.
Stinky stats. When it enters the battlefield, you may search for a Mirror card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So this can only search for other Mirror Kinsmiths and these other 2 kind of okay and bad Mirror. It's the only things that it can find. And I also looked. There are no rare Mirror either.
Okay.
So that's all that this can get. So I felt very confident in giving this a D or F, which you gave us. And they gave it a C- for some reason.
Okay.
I think, it's just when you see something that lets you search up other things and put it in your hand.
Well, you naturally think, there's some
always
there.
Always tempting. I think of Squadron Hawks, right?
Sure.
A 2-mana 1/1 flyer stinks.
Yeah.
Playing one that lets you search up other ones is quite good.
Yeah, thins your deck, it replaces itself, all that good stuff. So
I don't want to play this card.
No, not at all.
And the things that it finds are not worth it to me. And then the last card I have marked to talk about is Ickerplate Golem.
Yes.
And thank you for coming to my rescue here.
Absolutely.
So this is 3 generic mana for a 2/3 artifact creature, Phyrexian Golem. When a creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it has 1 or more oil counters on it, put an oil count. So all your oil creatures get an extra oil.
Sure.
And creatures you control with oil counters on them get +1/+1.
It's the Oil Baron.
Yeah. It's the Oil Lord.
Yeah.
It's a 3 mana, colorless, 2/3, gives all your oil creatures +1/+1, and gives them extra oil.
Sign me up, dude.
Yeah,
this is great.
The only downside to this card is it's a 2/3 instead of a 3/3.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we're mincing words here. It's not that much of a cost. I thought this was a slam dunk awesome card.
Yeah.
And so I gave this a build around B-.
Yeah.
You gave it a B-. I mean, I assume you agree with the build around
I absolutely
status.
would, yeah.
Because obviously, if you don't have oil, then this doesn't do anything.
Exactly.
They gave it a D or F. When they said that, I wrote the note here. I said, am I actually insane? And then you texted me and you were like, don't worry.
You're good.
You're not insane. I also don't understand what their problem with this card is.
Right.
I think they will eat their fucking words.
Absolutely.
On this.
Yeah. I mean, unless oil
it's just not viable.
Exactly. I don't foresee that happening. I really don't.
I don't either.
This great card. I highly recommend playing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's build around, Yeah. I don't know how first pickable it is because it really puts you in a strategy. Even though it's colorless.
Sure.
It's not keeping you totally open.
It defines you pretty
hard.
Hard.
It's not like other, if you got some sick, if you got the sword, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
You can just take that. Who cares what else you're going to draft?
So good.
This one's putting you into a deck. So even though it's colorless, there's only a handful of decks that it really, green, red, blue, red.
I would say it would be anywhere from 2nd to 4th pick.
Yeah.
Now, if you had just an awesome, oil-based, rare or something like that on your first pick, that you're like, yeah, I really want that. Oh, well, then second pick, this shows up, you're like, hell yeah, this is a nice 1-2 punch right here, right? But yeah, if you're just still open, 3rd, 4th, 5th pick even, and you see this I'm snatching this up real quick.
Absolutely.
And I'm thinking, okay, this is probably where I'm going here now. Yeah.
The thing that they said against this card, which I just, again, it's like, it's an objection that I just don't see any point to, is that all the other oil cards, most of the other oil cards, fuel themselves. So they put oil counters on themselves, and then they do things with the oil counters.
Okay.
This rewards you for having other cards that have oil on them. That's not a strike against this card.
No.
It just means it's a synergy card. It's a build-around card.
Which is, I think, the name of the game for this set.
So yeah, I think this is a great card. I think it will be sitting pretty when all things are said. Last cards to talk about, not because we disagree on the grades, really.
Actually, I don't think we do, yeah.
No, we agree completely.
Yeah.
Are the spheres, as we talked about, which we gave C pluses to, and LR gave C minus to C. So
okay. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And these are, it's a land, there's one for each color. It's a sphere. Enters the battlefield tapped, taps for a color, and you can pay one and that color, tap, sacrifice it to draw a card.
Yeah.
Just a great
I love
great
cards
value
like this.
card.
Yeah, especially in limited. You know, if you're stuck and just don't have any cards or anything like that, you can sack one of these and replenish your hand. So I like these cards a lot. These are great.
Yep. Only real note is that you don't want to go overboard. Like if you have like 5 of these in your deck, then you're really going to be slowing down
Might
your
be a
starts.
little slow for this set.
But I would happily take 2 of these in any limited deck
that
I was going to play.
Absolutely.
If you told me for the rest of my life I get 2 of these in every limited deck, I would be a happy little boy.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
That brings us to the final score.
Oh boy.
Right. It's over here. Drum roll, please.
Let's see it. Woo! That wasn't even close.
Seth 330, Kenny 252.
Oh, I think that's the worst I've ever had.
That is wild because like I said, there were strings in there where I was like, holy shit. I got like, let's go to black again. Oy, oy, oy.
Yeah, I get that.
Oy, oy, oy. Let's go to the end of green. Oh, mommy!
4, 6, 3. Yeah, those are big numbers there.
Dang, wild stuff.
Yeah.
So overall, going through this set, what are your thoughts? What are your expectations?
Apparently, I'm a little bit more positive on the set as a whole. There, huh? Oh, that's funny. I think it's interesting. I think, although the score doesn't really reflect it by any means, I think we are generally on the same page.
Yeah, there were
in the ballpark at least.
There were a lot of cards where I marked something to talk about, and then you just had a comment because we had the same grade or the same idea, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's interesting just to see like how this is going to play out. I'm more excited to play. I'm probably going to eat these words here. I'm more excited to play this set than I have been previous set. Like, I say that every single time. So it's like, Streets of New Capenna, I said that. I was like, oh man, it's like, look at all these multicolored cards and stuff like that. I hated it. What was next after that?
Dominaria United.
Dominaria. That was actually, that was pretty good.
So you liked that one. I had a hell of a time trying to figure that one out.
We kind of flipped on those. And then after that, I forgot.
Brothers War.
Brothers War. And I was like, oh yeah, this one actually looks pretty cool. I hated that one too. So now I'm very cautiously saying I'm optimistic about this one. I think it
I would say
does some cool stuff.
The thing that the sets that you disliked have in common is that what they implied or what they seemed to promise wasn't actually what the set was about.
Yeah.
So Streets of New Capenna is like the brokers, the families, like multicolor set, like the new guilds, and it's like, no, it's not 3-color set. It's just you go aggro, you play your 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop. Yeah. And then Brothers War was like big artifacts, ramp, like the power stones, and then what's it about? Player 1 drop, player 2 drop, player 3 drop. Not actually about that.
Yeah.
I think this set at least is doing what it says on the box, which is like it's about poison.
Yeah.
It's about proliferate.
Yeah.
And that's what it's going to be about.
As advertised. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to getting my ass beat in this set, and hopefully you, dear listener, will join me, and hopefully Seth.
Hopefully I will have something some content for you this time. Yeah.
So we'll have to see how it goes.
Sounds
Seth,
good.
thanks for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
Bye
Thanks for having me.
bye.
Bye-bye.